So here we are on the eve of yet another telltale down to the wire. We'll render everything else moot and decide the lives of millions. Not that we haven't heard all this before. Republican primary vote. Forced to suffer yet again those who claim either Ted Cruz or Donald Trump is Beelzebub in disguise. And woe be to those who vote for the enemy. This as we have yet another cry from deep within the Republican hinterlands about those determined to swing a third party into the mix and force America to see the error of their ways. Is it not possible Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney have better things to do with their time? The time has finally arrived where an American cruise ship docks in a Cuban port carrying real tourists. But save for a few places in America, plenty of people are wondering why all the fuss and why should we be so excited about one tiny little island. These are the discourses and issues you will have an opportunity to chime in on when we kick the phone lines open, because there's a new sheriff in town who will not allow wild rants and raves, or you will get the horns. We'll kick off the week with a visit to Outland and what really makes America great. And you can start lining up right now at 1-877-NEWSMAX if you dare. Bring it. I'm Ed Berliner, and this is The Hardline for Monday, May 2nd, 2016.
Donald is just playing a role, that he doesn't believe any of this, that he's just saying what he thinks the voters want to hear, and he will be someone totally different. John, you've known me a little while now. I am the same person yesterday, today, and tomorrow as president. I'm going to do the exact same things I promised to do. We're going to repeal Obamacare, pass a flat tax, lift the burdens on small businesses, bring back jobs and economic growth, bring manufacturing jobs back to this country. Donald changes as the wind blows because the only thing Donald is interested in is Donald, whatever makes him rich.
It's easy to tell we are coming down to the wire on the Republican presidential nomination process, and it has nothing to do with merely looking at the calendar. It's all about having an ear to the ground, more likely the various TV monitors over the weekend, and listening as every single candidate flails and thrashes about seeking desperately to stay atop the never-ending and often ponderous news cycle. In one corner, we have GOP leader Donald Trump, going back to the well of comments that get people jacked up and bellowing about how everything is rigged and every primary is fixed, and that's why he hasn't solidified his standing yet. This despite the fact these rules have been in place longer than he's been a candidate. And perhaps something does need to be said about everything political being a hose job and designed to ensure some people are in and certain people never see the light of day. Okay, in this corner we have Ted Cruz stocking his comeback fires by asking the people of Indiana to consider if they would want their children spouting exactly the kind of things Trump says, and if they could keep themselves from washing said child's mouth out with soap. This as he tries to downplay fading numbers and some real concern within his own ranks. Deep within the bowels of the right-leaning, there sits John Kasich, something of a forlorn figure at the moment, now being bombarded by his faithful, asking him to bow out. And you can guess what his answer is. And jumbling the mix is talk now of Veep candidates for the Donald. Everyone from Marco Rubio to Nikki Haley, and anybody who would be willing to live in the shadow of the Donald. Those who believe it could vault them from being a hair's breadth to the big chair. Others who believe their political careers would be, in effect, tied to the big oaken chair with a few volts coursing through it if they were his VP. One last minor issue here. The fear no one's addressing, that the Senate is going blue this November and Republicans might not be able to do a single thing about it. Having said all that, here we go with the Monday version of the political animal. Set it all up. And time for you to get on the phone lines at 1-877-NEWSMAX because you will have your say in mere minutes. Begin with the former Democratic senatorial aide, now contributor at The Hill, Brent Budowsky. Countered with politics editor at the Washington Examiner and author of Devouring Freedom, W. James Antle III. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Let's get to work. Ted Cruz delegates apparently wavering. Donald Trump gaining momentum. Hey, Jim, what happened here? It was just a couple of days ago we were told that Ted Cruz was on the march here. Everything was going well in Indiana, and he might actually go after Donald Trump. Now, all of a sudden, no one has any confidence.
What happened is that Donald Trump did so well in the Northeast. Everybody thought he would do well, that he'd win all of those states, but he did so well that effectively all of those proportional states were winner-take-all states. He really cleaned up and won the vast majority of the delegates out of those states, improving his position towards getting 1237 before Cleveland. So Ted Cruz has been very skilled at gathering delegates at these local and state GOP conventions. The problem with the kinds of delegates that he has, though, is that they are unbound. Trump is winning bound delegates, at least through the first ballot, by winning a lot of primaries. Cruz has done some of that, but a lot of these recent wins that we've talked about a lot are with the unbound delegates. The problem with the unbound delegates, they can pick somebody else later if they feel that the momentum is shifting to the other side. The hope Cruz had was that would happen after the first ballot, weakening Trump. But if it happens before the first ballot, benefits Trump.
Yeah, but let me say this. After Donald Trump won the 5 states, we heard a lot of people saying that he was a lock. Okay, we get it. But even after those 5 states, Jim, there was still a couple of days after that where people believed that Ted Cruz was actually still in it and gaining momentum. And it was a big deal, but it wouldn't stop him completely. So we've still got a couple of days in there. What happened? People just come to their senses?
Well, the poll numbers in Indiana don't look very good for Ted Cruz. So if you have these 6 northeastern states, starting in New York, voting so massively for Trump, and he gets all of those delegates, he does better with the unbound delegates in Pennsylvania than anybody anticipated. And then looks like he's going to win in Indiana, which was supposed to be Ted Cruz's last stand for keeping him under 1237. Then you start to get this parade of people who just have this bandwagon effect and want to be with the winner. And, you know, Cruz has always been at risk because he's not the inside guy, so that's always been a risk for him.
I think you hit something there, because it's also the bandwagon effect that we have to consider, because that happens in politics every single cycle. Hey, Brent, let's talk about a bandwagon effect right here, because Donald Trump says that those who support Bernie Sanders will bandwagon and rally around his candidacy, saying Mr. Sanders and his followers have been treated badly by the Democrats, so they're going to come my way. Come on, Brent, get on board, brother, bandwagon it. You believe that, right?
Oh, yeah. It's also possible that the College of Cardinals will invite me to Rome to be the successor to Pope Francis as the Holy Father. That's possible, too. Now, the number of Bernie Sanders people that are going to support Donald Trump, and I will not repeat the litany of insults and outrages that he's done, can be fit into a phone booth. It just ain't going to happen. That's a creation of Donald Trump's imagination and a few underemployed people in the media who don't know anything about the Bernie Sanders people. The bottom line is this. The Democrats have a candidate, almost certainly Hillary Clinton, who obviously is an imperfect candidate, to put it charitably. The Republicans, by contrast, are in a fiasco situation. They blew it a long time ago by not uniting behind Marco Rubio, a credible president who could have expanded their base, or John Kasich today. Ted Cruz is dead. He was dead all along. You never heard me say he was gaining steam. Ted Cruz is a guy who is the candidate of an establishment that hates him, whose last speaker compared him to Lucifer, followed by Satanists who said Satan would be embarrassed being compared to Ted Cruz. They got a big problem. The smart move for Republicans long ago and even today, given their bad options, is to just ditch Cruz like a bad egg and get behind Kasich and hope for the best.
All right, now wait a minute. Let's talk about Kasich. But let's talk about Kasich here for a second. And Jim, let me bring you back into this, because nearly half of the Ohio voters in a survey by the Public Policy Polling Company have already found they want John Kasich to drop out of the race. They're saying, come on, get out. So look, I know that Brent is out here saying that Kasich is the best chance in his mind. Careful now, he is a lefty saying that, if you will. And now here we have, Jim, these people saying get out. Isn't it time for really Kasich to just get out and stop this nonsense?
Well, that's kind of Kasich's problem, is that all of the people who like him or say he'd be the most logical candidate for the Republicans are people who would never vote for a Republican presidential candidate in November. He's only won 1 state. He's trailing a candidate who's dropped out in the delegate count, although he did finally bypass Marco Rubio in the popular vote. It's very difficult to see what Kasich's path forward is here. He has an impressive resume. He's got good poll numbers, although largely because nobody's attacked him in head-to-head matchups with Hillary Clinton. And he comes from a state with a lot of electoral votes Republicans need to win. But he is so far behind that for the Republican National Convention to just name him the nominee, they might as well pick anybody they would like at that point, because he's so far behind it, you'd have to swing so many delegates in his favor for him to walk away with it.
All right, now I'm going to put a smile on Brent Budowsky's face here for a moment, and I know that the Republicans in the audience will not like this whatsoever, but we still want to see this, because this is Harry Reid. Over the weekend, Harry Reid vowed, did not just say it would happen, he vowed that a Democratic takeover of the Senate is fairly certain in the November elections. He said it on a radio show, and here's what he said.
I may have skipped a race, but not on purpose. We need to pick four to take the majority, and with the numbers I've given you, it's going to be a fairly certain thing that we can do that.
Brent, are you going to go ahead, put a smile on your face, and anger everybody else on the right and say that he's correct?
Well, Harry is an optimist, and I love him for that. I give Democrats the edge, no question about it. But there's a lot between the cup and the lip, and I would not go too far making predictions. Democrats definitely have the edge. There is the possibility, even the probability, in my opinion, that Donald J. Trump leads the Republicans to a historic debacle and disaster. Most top Republicans privately agree with that, and they're focusing their attention on the House and Senate races, where they're going to try to save the House and Senate. But Democrats are definitely the favorite to get the Senate back, but it's by no means certain. I love Harry, but he's a little optimistic for today.
All right, I got about 45 seconds left. Jim, to you. On that exact question then, and by the way, everybody stand by because we're going to come to your phone calls right after the break. How then do the Republicans stop this? Harry Reid says it is a fait accompli that the Senate falls back into their hands.
Well, the Republicans are defending a lot of seats that would be tough to defend in any election year. They can't completely abandon their presidential nominee and hope for the best in the House and Senate. They need that nominee to get a certain base vote, even for some of these people to get the ticket splitting they need if the Republican nominee loses in the fall, to maintain the Senate and to keep from losing some seats in the House.
Only needs 4 seats to secure the majority. My goodness, people. Be very careful. Brent Budowsky loves to smile at these moments, and we know that people want to make sure that he cannot smile come the time November rolls around. We'll deal with that as we go along. Jim Antle, Brent Budowsky, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Now, all we have just discussed is up for grabs after the break. Your side. Have a take, stay on target, and you just might survive. That is just an outside possibility here. 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-Newsmax. We got a long way to go. We got a lot to discuss tonight. This is right at the top here, including this. The Dems needing 4 seats. Can the Republicans even hope to stop them at this point? Your take, your call. We'll get to it right now. Stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes of news. The Hard Line continues.